Hey, and welcome to today's video. So we have Jessica, Rahul, myself, Chaz with you today. And in this video, you're gonna learn how to talk like an executive. So we'll go through this, and throughout this entire podcast, we're gonna focus on three main areas. So it's really the first area is executive presence. Your second area is strategic communication. And your third area is meeting mastery. So we'll go through all those and give you a tip on how to do best in all those. So Rahul, if you don't mind just diving in first here and really explaining a little bit about executive presence and what they can do to improve that.
Sure. Yeah. So the whole purpose of this video is to talk about how to speak like an executive. And that doesn't mean that you're an executive already. It could mean that you're maybe moving up, or it could mean that you're an entry level and you want to learn how to communicate at an executive level because you're eventually seeing yourself as giving meetings and presentations to executives. And it's going to help at any level that you're in. So the first piece is executive presence. Now, a lot of people say that word, but they don't really know what it is. So what that is that you are grounded physically. This is very physical in terms of executive presence. You're grounded. You have a stance when you stand that is tall. When you're sitting down, you're not sitting back like this, right? You're engaged in the meeting. You even know how to lean forward. It's your gestures. Do you use soft gestures versus more authoritative gestures? For example, saying this is really important. Are you able to do that? And are you able to pause when you speak, when you say something that you think is of value? Another aspect of it is your eye contact. You cannot have executive presence if you're looking down when you say something or when you're looking up and away. You've got to be centered here on screen. So an example of someone with very clear executive presence is someone like President Barack Obama. Our clients mention him all the time and they go, oh, you mean like Barack Obama? Is like, yes, he pauses, he waits, he keeps eye contact, he stands there, he leans in. If you ever takes a town hall meeting or something like that, when he gets asked the question, he takes a small step forward. So he's doing all of those things because he's worked on it. And so those are things that you can emulate. You can even watch other people. He's just one example. Of course, there's so many other people with great executive presence. And it's that ability to stay poised, to stay confident. And it has that weight and gravitas to it. Another example is just, you walk into a party and it's that person that they're walking around and they come into the room and there's just something about them. There's that magnetism. That's that executive presence too. They don't need to be the loudest. They don't need to be the funniest or anything like that. But there's some weight to them in the room, and that's what you want to build. And you can do that through different techniques with your body language.
Great. Well, thank you for that, Rahul. And Jessica, care to elaborate?
Yeah, we hear a lot about executive presence from really high-level leaders. They find themselves in these environments with these other really high-level leaders. And if you have not taken the time to work on these skills, like Raul was talking about, you can find yourself in a situation where you tend to shrink back when really you need to do exactly what Raul said and step forward a little bit. I was working with a client this week and he had a big meeting coming up and he had prepared and he was ready to go. And he got into this meeting and done all these things. And he got asked a question that he didn't know the answer to. And he found himself kind of reeling, just went down this rabbit hole and really lost it. And after the meeting, he felt like just a complete and utter disaster. And that's why it's so important for us to consider those executive presence. Have yourself ready, be poised correctly, sitting up straight, like Raul said, really engaging that eye contact, having all of that foundation done. In those moments when you're like my friend this week and you're asked a question that you don't know the answer to, you're going to be able to share much easier from that base than if you were in a different space.
That's right. Thanks, Jessica. And if for you listening, if you are curious of how you can develop your executive presence more, if it's still a little mysterious to you, then reach out to us. I mean, we help people with this all the time with improving their executive presence. We do this through our leadership development program. So it's a one-on-one coaching for you. That way, at the end of that journey, you're going to know how to speak like an executive and be ready to move up to that next level in your career and also to confidently talk to your upper management. So reach out, click the link below and set up some time to have a discussion to see if that coaching program will be right for you. Now let's go on to the second phase here, strategic communication. So Jessica, if you don't mind just elaborating a little bit on strategic communication and how they can do that.
Yeah, we get a lot of questions about strategic communication. And the reason for this is because as professionals, we spend a lot of our days in the weeds, mixed up in all of those details, all the juicy details, right? But when we're speaking to really high level leaders, we want to kind of meet in the middle. Over here, we've got vision. Over here, we've got all these details. And we really want to meet somewhere here in the middle, which is the happy place of strategic communication. So for example, let's say you're building a website. You go and you speak to this later and you say, all right, well, in the next couple of weeks, we are going to adjust all of our SEO. We are going to add several different pages. And then we were going to take a look at all of our numbers. Or you can say, in the next 3 weeks, we should have the website ready to go and up and loaded on our platform. Now, which do you think is going to receive better? That high level leader really wants to know when the project is going to get done, not necessarily all the little details that it takes to get you there.
That's right. Thanks, Jessica. And Rahul, care to elaborate on that?
Well, another thing that happens, I think, is because you're so in the details, it's easy to kind of get to, maybe you get to that conclusion that, oh, and the website is going to be functional by this and this date. You got to switch that communication. You got to start with we call it bottom line up. You got to start with the bottom line first, and then go into maybe how you got to that result. So it's the same thing with an opinion or something that, an opinion or a belief that you have on the team. If you believe that, I don't know, we shouldn't be going into the office until 2022, right? Let's say you believe that. Now, what a lot of people do is they'll go from the details and then work themselves up to the opinion that they have. So they might go, over the last couple of weeks, I've really been reading in the news that this variant has been doing this and that, and also I have this, and I've heard that employees are complaining, and my team especially has been doing this. So yeah, I think that we shouldn't come in by 2022. That whole time that you're doing that, people in management are thinking, okay, where is he going with this? What is the point that he's trying to make? So you want to make your point first, which is going to require work. And that's what we spend a lot of time working on with clients. That's a muscle to be able to go, okay, what's my point? And you say that first, which is very different from how we've been taught in school from academic and scientific communication. Scientific communication, you have to give all your reasoning first and all this stuff, and then you get to it. These days now they have the abstract, right? So you can read the paper and see what's the point first, like the executive summary almost. But generally speaking, you kind of go all the way through and you go, this is our conclusion. Business communication is totally the opposite. Unfortunately, we've been trained the other way around, which makes sense for different contexts. In business, that does not work. You want to flip it. What's the conclusion? Conclusion is, I think we should not be going in until 2022. Here's why. So that's the difference between the two. And it takes a lot of time. And if you're not used to this, it'll even feel a little dramatic. I had a client literally tell me, you're going to get me fired, because he was afraid that if he communicated like that, it somehow felt really jarring or something. And I said, no, that's actually going to get you promoted, because people are going to go, oh, like I know what he's trying to get across. And then he backs himself up after that.
That's right. And something you said there as well, Rahul, of a good way to look at strategic communication is like the research paper, right? If you've ever looked at a research paper, you see it has that abstract at the top there. It's got abstract, and then it has all the details of everything else. When you're communicating at the strategic level, you're talking about the abstract. If you go in there and you talk about how the study took 40 mice and what they did is measure their heartbeat, it's like, okay, great, but what's the abstract? So that's a good way to think about strategic communication when you're going into these situations. All right, now coming on to the final piece here of how to talk like an executive. As an executive, you find yourself in meetings and in situations where you have to speak your mind right there on the spot. So for this final piece, it's the meeting mastery piece. And we'll go ahead and go through this. Rahul, what is meeting mastery and how can they do better in these impromptu situations?
Meeting mastery means that you can go into a meeting, you're running the meeting, you can facilitate it first, meaning you know how to get people participating, you know how to get people engaged. You know how to interrupt the conversation if it's going in the wrong direction. We know how that always happens. And you're able to summarize and synthesize information as it goes along. So if there's a 30-minute, an hour-long meeting, you don't want to be summarizing everything at the end. You want to be able to synthesize and summarize that information as you go along. So you might say, okay, let's pause for a second. So it sounds like what we've discussed so far is XYZ. That's one example of a skill. So there's all these skills within meeting mastery that you have to be able to learn around the facilitation piece. And then the other piece is the impromptu side. Maybe Jessica, you can jump in and talk about that.
Yeah, when it really comes to impromptu, I think when it's meeting mastery, the most important part of this is really having your attention focused out on your audience, really being aware of what's happening in your audience, not so that it can trigger you to be anxious, but so that you can react. Kind of like Roel was saying, if you have people kind of talking over in this corner, you think, okay, let's take a minute here and pause. Who here is having a little bit of a hard time understanding this particular slide? So just checking in with your audience, being able to do that and really focus, again, your energy out on them is crucial to have these back and forth engaging type of meetings that we really want to have.
That's right. So takeaway from that is get out of your head and focus on the outside, what's going on, trust yourself to react, and also have the authority to really facilitate that meeting if, of course, you're the one responsible for that. So that is the end of this process for how to talk like an executive, how to speak like an executive. And if you are wanting to move up in your career, going to the next level, whatever that is, individual to your first leadership role, or if it's a VP to a C-level executive, those are the skills that you need to work on to get to the next level. One, your executive presence. That's around your delivery, your body posture, your language, your tonality. Two, being a strategic communicator internally and externally to the company. Give the abstract. Don't just jump into the details first. Then three is meeting mastery, speaking up in these impromptu situations, facilitating these meetings, and concisely speaking your mind when it matters. So, like I said earlier, if you want to learn how to do this, you want some more personal help with this, we have our one-on-one coaching to help you do this. So we'll be there with you every single week. At the end of the process there, the leadership development program, you're going to know how to talk like an executive to move up in your career and to speak more confidently to upper management, to clients, and to the rest of your organization. Other than that, thanks for watching. Subscribe, like the video. We'll see you next time.